So, where do you see mental health going? I mean, you obviously, we walked through all the different layers and
Yeah.
levels and stuff that you've done. Where do you see mental health going in this country?
That's a great question. Um, I think I think there's going to be a whole bunch of us who are going to remain advocates again, I'm not the only one who's singing this song, which I'm so thankful for. With everything that's happening, I think there's again kind of like that emergence of the people who are fearful, who are wanting to kind of like again become quiet because they're afraid. And then there's also simultaneous to that an emergence of those who are advocates and wanting to be able to, fight for fill in the blank, right? My hope is that despite the splitting, we will come back to a place where we're not siloed again, and that we will be able to run with being more integrative and inclusive and accessible. It's going to come back to, I think, looking at the individuals, and the person, looking at one person at a time holistically, and then in so doing, be able to serve the collective. I think we're going to have to, there's going to be a lot of us who are going to have to do that. And I'm thankful, like, again, I mentioned the company that I'm with right now, which is recovery.com. It's an amazing resource. I wish I had this tool 25 years ago when I first started, because the whole mission is to connect people to care. It's to provide support to family members and remove the barriers to care as much as we can. And so what I do there as chief clinical officer is really reinforce the concept of recovery literacy. And in so doing, try to create unbiased resources and tools to be able to remove those barriers to being able to find care and support when needed, whether you're a person seeking care yourself or a family member, a loved one. And we're seeking to just really expand all of that. It's free for everyone to go on there and use. You can get education, you can find treatment. There's a whole bunch of different things.
Well, I want to jump back into that real quick, but first, you know, we all need, or I believe many of us can use a tweak now and then, a vent now and then,
Yeah.
course correction now and then. I think everyone, if they're honest with themselves, say, I don't need to do this alone. I don't need to suffer in silence. I don't want to talk to my wife about it, my kids about it, my coworkers about it. Everyone has a little something that they could use, and that's why coaching is so crucial.
Oh,
Michael
yeah.
Jordan is one of the biggest advocates for coaching. He's probably one of the greatest athletes in the history of the world. So I do want to touch on that again, but I lied earlier, and you probably knew I was a liar because you're a psychologist, and you could tell I'm a liar. I did lie earlier. I said I only had one question, but I really have two questions.
Of course, of course.
I never give up the second one. I always give you the first one, but I never give the second. So my last question is before we sign off and go and find out more about your program. But if there was a thought that Dr. Mala had, or uh, a saying, a thought, a wish, if there's something that meant something very deeply to you
Yeah.
that you'd like to share with us before we tootle out of here, what would that thought be if you have one you'd like to share?
Recovery is possible.
Mhm.
Um, and what we need to do is build systems that honor wholeness, foster belonging, and also cherish what I said earlier, which was the story, the soul, and the science behind it all. Understanding that recovery is a lifelong language of resilience that we're developing and cultivating for ourselves.